Right. Good evening, all of you. Am I audible to you? Okay, thank you. Right, what we have learned last week? We have learned about solving equations, how to solve the equation when there is one variable or when there is two variable with the power of 1. Right? If there is one variable, you can just solve it as normally. If there is more than one variable, then you should have more than one equations to solve that one. Right? So remember the last week thing. So we call those as simultaneous equation. But you can solve those kind of equation when the power of the variable is equal to 1. Right? So we call those equations as linear equations. Then we have learned about what? Linear equation with simultaneous equation. After that, we learn how to solve the quadratic equations. So quadratic equations means what? The equation with the variable which is having power of 2. Right? So there we have name each coefficient. The coefficient with the power of the variable with power of 2, we call it quadratic coefficient. Then the coefficient with the linear variable, we call it linear coefficient, and the constant. Right? Then we learn how to solve the quadratic equation. We have learned two methods. One is factorizing method and other one is, what is the other one? One is by factorizing, other one is by using the formula of finding the solution of quadratic equation. The solution we call root. So we can find root using what? Factorization or else applying the formula. The formula is given as, if the equation is in the form of a squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then the solution or the root of that equation is x is equivalent to minus b plus o minus b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Right? Then according to the b squared minus 4ac, value of b, the square root part, we can predict the solution of that equation. Or there are some characteristics or the different characteristics based on the square root value of the solution or the roots. Right? So we say, if the square root value, that's what is the square root is b squared minus 4ac. If the b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, then the root of the quadratic equations is equal. Right? It is having equivalent root. If it is greater than 0, if it is greater than 0, what happens? If it is greater than 0, we say it's having rational root. So, right, the root with before that one, right? Root. If it is greater than 0, that means there can be more than one root, the root, or else the two roots should be there. Those are different roots. Right? If it is negative, then we say the roots are not real. Right? If the b squared minus 4ac is not equal to, not less, greater than or equal to 0, then or else if b squared minus 4ac less than 0, or else if it is negative, we say roots of that equation is not real, right? If b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, there can be single root. If it is greater than 0, there can be two distinct real roots. So I asked you to do these exercises last week. Have you done these exercises? I think we have do a few of them. Will you be able to do all the exercises here? Is there any difficulties of finding roots of a quadratic equation using that formula? If you have any difficulties of finding that one, please let me know, right? Right, then we look at the operations on XY plane. Today we are going to discuss about that thing and the inequalities, and then about the measurements, right? So what is mean by XY plane? What is XY plane? XY plane consists of two axes. One axis is x-axis, other axis is y-axis, right? That we call it 2D plane, right? So the vertical axis we call vertical axis as, vertical one is the y-axis and the horizontal axis is the x-axis, right? Here I have shown those axes in two different colors. You can see it, right? In the 2D plane, the vertical axis we call the y-axis, and the horizontal axis we call the x-axis. And what do we call the intersection of two axes? Or the center point of two axes, or at the intersection of two axes, we denote by what? The origin of that, or the intersection of two axes, we represent by 0, right? They both axes are intersect at 0, right? From starting from 0, you can represent the positive value in the right hand side, as if you remember the number line, positive values are in the right hand side and the negative values are in the left hand side. If you consider x-axis, positive value representing in the right hand side, negative value representing the left hand side. If you consider y-axis, the positive values are representing where? Below the crossing point, right? Negative value are representing below the crossing point or below the 0. Positive values are representing in the upper part of the y-axis. So you can see it in here also. If you consider this is the origin, we represent using 0. The positive values of x-axis is left hand, we are representing left hand side. Negative values are representing, positive values are representing in right hand side. Negative values are representing in left hand side, right? So here you can see it is the horizontal axis representing the x-axis. If it is vertical, then it is y-axis. The positive value is representing in the upper part of the y-axis, and the negative values are representing in the lower part of the y-axis. Right. Then how do we represent the point of these axes? We normally representing within the bracket in the form of x comma y. Right? Always we write the x value first, then the y value. Right? We'll increase the font size. Right? If you have given the each point, we call as coordinate, xy coordinates, right? So in the xy plane, each point we call it xy coordinate of that, each point as representing with the coordinate. That means the value of each point have a x value as well as the y value, right? In the xy plane, each point have a x value as well as the y value. Therefore, every point you have to represent as xy coordinates, right? So, for every point, there is x value and the y value. So, x value is representing first, right? You have to write the x value of that point first, then the y value. So, this is the format we represent in the coordinate of xy plane, right? So then if we representing like this, 2, 3, what does that mean? 2, 3 means the given point x value is equivalent to 2 and the y value is equivalent to 3, right? Here you can see shown each point representing with its coordinate, right? In the xy plane, each point representing with its coordinate. Here shown 1, 2, 1, 2 means the point is in somewhere on here, right? Let's mean the x value is 1 and the y value is 2. The point is where the x and y are intersect, right? 3, minus 1 mean what? The x value is 3, y value is minus 1, right? So 2, 1 is in somewhere here, right? 3, minus 1 is in somewhere here. Minus 2, 3 means the x value of that point is minus 2. The y value of that point is plus 3. Therefore, that should be in somewhere on here, right? One, 2 is this one. Minus 2, minus 2 means x value is minus 2 as well as the y value is minus 2. It should be on somewhere on here, right? Right? That's how we are representing each point in our xy plane. Here you can see those points were marked in the xy plane with what? With a circle, small circle, right? So now you should know, what you should know, the form that we representing each point. We represent each point as coordinate. Coordinate are written as x, y. The x coordinate write the first and then we write the y coordinate. Right? Always if the coordinates were given, that means the x coordinate and y coordinate are given respective, right? We normally represent coordinate within brackets, right? Keep in mind that if you ask you to represent the coordinates of a given point, then you have to write it down within the brackets. Within the bracket, first the x coordinate value, then the y coordinate value. Why it is having two values? Since we are representing this in a xy plane, right? We are representing it in xy plane, then each point should have two values. So what is the value of the origin or the intersection point? It is 0, 0, right? Here, mainly you have to keep in mind the first value we are representing in coordinate is the value related to x coordinates, right? Right. Now we will look at earlier we have looked at about the equation that is with the equal sign. Right? Now we are looking at about the inequalities. In the equation, both sides are equal, but in inequalities, both sides may or may not be equal. Right? We normally represent inequalities only on what? X-axis. Right? We normally represent inequalities only on x-axis. Here in xy plane, there are two axes. One is x-axis and the other one is the y. X-axis is the horizontal one. So we represent inequalities in the x-axis. Right? Right. When we are representing inequalities, normally we give it as a range of intervals, right? So we represent it as a part of the x-axis. We use the signs we use less than sign. We call this as the less than sign. Then you can use. So this means if you use this sign, that means I will put some constant value in both sides. What does this mean? This means A is less than B. The first value we are written before the sign, we call it, first we call A is less than B. Right? So if it is on other way around, that means A is greater than B. Right? If you write like this, that means the value that we can have for the A can be less than or equal to B. It can be less than B as well as it can be equivalent to B. Right? If it is in only this sign, that means all the value belong to A should be less than the value of B. It will not be equivalent to the value of B. Right? If we put equal sign, that means all the value belong to A can be equal to B or less than B. That's why we say this less than or equal. If you use this sign, that means this is representing the greater than sign. So we call it A is greater than B. All the values belong to A is greater than B, but here it does not equivalent to B. Right? But if you use this sign, that means all the value belong to A is greater than or equal. It can be B or greater the value than the B. Right? You have to learn the difference between these signs. Right? First, we read the letter before the sign. Then, if the sign, according to the sign, you can represent it if it is in this way around, we say A is greater than B, or if it is in this way around, we say A is less than B. Right? So those are the we call those signs as inequality signs. Right? Here you can see these sign here. If you use this sign, that means it will not be equal to B. It will be less than or greater than. If you use the sign with equal sign, that means can be less than or equal to B. So if when you use inequalities, there now you can see the values belong to A is not a single one. If you put here this equal mark, then what will happen? Always the value of A is equivalent to B. But if you use this unequal sign, that means always the value of A can be any value less than or equal to B. That means A can be B, B minus 1, B minus 2, likewise, right? So you have to keep in mind, when you are using inequalities, there can be many values belong to the A, right? Here you can see each symbol. This symbol means all the inequality signs are less than, greater than, less than or equal, greater than or equal. Or any of these signs you can write, right? Now, when you are using inequalities, you have to keep in mind this one, right? So assume that you are having number 4, right? Okay, we will keep for now we will keep it as A. Assume that the value less than B is equivalent to A. If you add something to this side, add the positive value into one side, will not change the inequality sign, right? If you add positive constant value into both sides, then the inequality sign will not be changed. If it is representing A is less than or equal to B, then A plus K also less than or equal to B plus K, right? Here what you have to keep in mind is when you have two numbers with inequalities, if you add a same value into both sides, the inequality sign same value or same positive value, right? Same positive value into both sides, then the inequality sign will not change, right? So if you multiply both, so that A is here, you multiply A less than B is there. I will change the colors of this. Now we assume that you are going to multiply the both sides by the same constant value. Will it be changed? No. The inequality sign will not be changed, right? Assume that the KE, we are assuming that K is positive. When K is a positive value. And also, Assume that you divide both sides by the same constant value. Right? Then will this change the inequality sign? So if A is equal to 5, 5 plus K is less than, okay. If A is equal to 5, B is equal to 6, then 5 plus 2 is always less than 6 plus 2. Right? If A is equal to 5 and if you put in, yeah, again A is equal to 5 and K is equal to 2, B is equal to 6, right? Assume that. So if A is equal to 5, then if it is multiplied by 2, the left hand side will become 10 and the right hand side become what? 12, right? Then if you divide the same thing, if you divide 5 by 2 and 6 by 2, then you can see the inequality sign will not change. Now, what you have to keep in mind here, when you have inequality sign, if you do an operation with positive value, if you add, multiply or divide the both side by a positive constant value, then the inequality sign will not change. Here K are equivalent, right? I am talking about doing the same operation or the value with the same operation, same value with the same operation into both sides will not change the inequality sign. Right? If you put, here you can see, whatever the inequality sign, it will not change. Right? If you, here also is showing if x is greater than x plus k greater than y plus k and x minus k also greater. Here also you can see if it is minus, also the both side will not change. Whether it is positive, I will take this one. Whether it is positive or negative, if you add the same value into both sides, then the inequality sign will not change. I will put positive and negative in both sides. Right? But for addition and subtraction, the inequality sign will not change according to the sign of the constant value. But if it is negative value, then when you are doing multiplication, what will happen? Right. Before that, I will show you example here. Here, that 5 is less than 6. You multiply it by one side by 2. If you multiply this side 2, then you can see here 5 into 2 is 10. 6 into 2 is 12. You can see here the inequality sign should not change when you are multiplying the both side by a positive value. If you multiply both side by negative value, then what will happen? Then the answer will become minus 10 and minus 12. Right. What you can say about these two values? Is minus 10 greater than, less than minus 12 or greater than minus 12? Yes, anyone of you can answer? If you multiply both side by minus value or the negative or a negative value, then will this inequality sign remain unchanged? Is the illusion. It should Dilusha saying less than, but not mention which one, right? So, but if you look at these, you can see, if you look at the number line, the minus 12 is, if I show you the number line along the number line here, right? If you look at this number line, you can see the minus 6 is less than minus 5. Minus 5 is less than minus 4. Minus 4 is less than minus 3. That's mean what? Then minus 10 is not less than minus 12. Minus 10 is should be greater than minus 12. So if you use minus value for multiplication or division, the sign of unequal sign should be changed. Right? Yeah. Rohit and Danika is right, correct. So if here you can see when the k is the constant value is positive, the inequality sign will not change. It remain unchanged. If it is negative, then the sign of the inequality should change, right? If it is greater than, then it will become so. If k is minus, sorry, if you multiply this by minus value, then less than will become greater than, right? When A is less than. When A is less than B, if you multiply both sides by minus value, then the sign will change. If A greater than B, if you multiply both sides by minus value, then the sign will change other way around, right? So you have to keep in mind those things when we are considering the inequalities, right? Now say that, now you assume that you have given 4 is greater than 2, right? Multiply the both side by minus 1 Write the answer. So what is the answer when you multiply both sides by -1? Right? Write down the answer. The 4 is greater than 2 is given. So what is the answer when you multiply both sides by -1? Yes, Rohita, Malika. Oh, you are correct, right? So when you multiply these, the value also change and also the equals sign or inequality sign also should be changed into, if it is greater than, it should be less than. If it is less than, it should be greater than. Right? Now the answer is -4 less than -2. Right? කියන්නේ inequality sign එකක් තියෙනවා නම් අපි addition එකක් or subtraction එකක් කරාට inequality sign එක change වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Sign එක change, the inequality notation එක greater than the less than the කියලා අපි දාන notation එක change වෙන්නේ නැහැ. But if you multiply or divide by positive value, then the inequality sign will not be changed. If you multiply by a negative value, then the greater sign, if it is a greater than sign, it will become less than. If it is less than sign, then it will become greater than, right? Right. And if you are having P greater than Q. Divide with about by -5 and write the answer. So what is the answer if you divide P greater than Q by -5? So what is the answer then? If you divide both sides by -5, now I have given as P greater than Q. Answer will be P divided by -5, but less than Q divided by -5. Right? Whatever the value was P or Q, if you divide or multiply by minus value, then the inequality sign will change, right? That is what you should keep in mind. Right, if you move on to next, now you know how to solve the inequalities, right? When you have inequality sign, the solutions writing in with the greater than sign or with the less, greater than or equal, less than or equal sign, right? Right. Now we will look at, if you may remember, in the very first day we have talked about the number line, right? So in here also it has a small part. It is having a small part about the number line. As I remember, we have discussed about the number line on first day, right? Now, in the number line, we usually represent the value as intervals. You can represent each value. What are the values that you can represent in number line? Number line, you can represent any real number, right? So we have learned about the real numbers in the first day, right? You can denote or represent any real number in the number line, right? In the number line, you can represent any value with open interval or close interval. Right, before we go into that point, here we have learned about inequalities. If there is something like this, how do we read it? I will put the equation. When you have something like this written in the form of this, if anything right in the form of this, then how do we read this? This means this is representing an interval. The x value can be this, the mere meaning of this one is the x value can be in between 2 and 4, right? It can be greater than 2, but it should be, sorry, greater than or equal to 2. The value of x can be greater than or equal to 2, as well as the less than or equal to 4. That is how we show a range within the x-axis, right? Here we are showing the value of x can be a range or the interval. If it is interval, you should represent it like this. Within the x value එක මොනවා හරි value එකක් අතර නම් interval එකක් ඇතුළේ නම් තියෙන්නේ, we represent it like this, right? So those interval can be closed interval. Closed interval mean both sides. We normally represent closed intervals, right? Within the square bracket 2, 4. That means the value of x can be equal to 2 or it is greater than 2 as well as the equivalent to 4 or less than to 4. Here you can see each endpoint of closed interval. If it is given closed interval, that means all the numbers of x is between 1 and 3 but it is including 1 and 3. So if it is when you are representing a value in a number line, if it is not specific, we can represent it as an interval. So interval can be closed interval or open interval or semi-closed interval, right? So closed interval means the number is showing within the range, the lower value and upper values also can be equivalent. Or not equal, the value related to that x can be include the both value. What does that mean? It's just like that we have written in this one. Here it shows the value of x can be 2 equal or greater than 2. And also value of x can be equal 4 or less than 4. Right? If you are showing it like this, less than, with the equal sign, inequality is showing with the equal sign, we call this interval is closed interval. Right? The interval is closed. So if you are representing it using the set notation, x is the value that can represent in the number line. X is belong to real. That means as I said earlier, the value we are representing in number line can be any real number. Right? So x is belong to real numbers and x is in between 1 and 3, including both 1 and 3. Right? We call this as closed interval. Right? If it is open interval, then we representing it only with the brackets, right? So if it is open, then the equal sign will not come into the inequality. So if it is open interval, that means x is belong to real and x is greater than 1 as well as less than 3. But it will not equal to 1 or 3, right? X cannot be equivalent to 1 or 3. Other interval type is what? Semi-open or semi-closed interval. That means one side can be open and other side can be closed interval. Right? When one side is open and other one side is closed, we call it semi-open interval or semi-closed interval. Both are same, semi-open or semi-closed interval. Here you can see with the inequality signs, you can represent it. X is such that x is belong to real numbers, comma, x is greater than 1, but less than or equal to 3. Right? Here you can see the difference. If it is closed interval, then there should be equal sign in the inequality with the inequality sign. So you have to write equal sign with the inequality sign. If it is open interval, then no equal sign there, only the greater than or less than sign. If it is semi-closed or semi-open interval, then one inequality is with the equal sign. Other one is without the equal sign. Right? Right. He asks you to describe the interval 3 by set notation. How do you describe this? That means if it is square bracket, that means it is a closed interval. Right? Here also you can see when it is open or open, one side it show normal bracket. And if it is closed, then the closed side show the square bracket. If it is both sides are open, then it shows as a normal bracket. Right? Describe the interval 3 minus 4 using set notation. If you are asked to represent it using set notation, then what you have to do is write down as within the curly bracket x colon x belong to R, comma, minus 3. The side of minus 3 is having the square bracket, therefore minus 3 greater than or equal x, less than or equal 4. Why we put less than or equal? Since the square bracket is in the inside also. If you write like this, the first number is this one and the second number is this one. X is within these two intervals. Right? So based on this bracket, the notation of this bracket, you can put the inequality sign. Right? You can decide whether it with equal sign or not. Right? Right. If you look at this in a number line, or if we look at this in a number line, then it will be right. What does this showing? This is showing an open interval, minus 3, 3. It says that 3, 3 is the interval. What does that mean? When it says that interval is 3, minus 3, 3 within normal bracket, then that's mean it is open interval, right? If it is open interval, that means minus 3 is greater than x, no equal sign, right? And less than, so minus 3 is less than x and plus 3 is greater than x, or else you can say x is greater than minus 3 and less than plus 3. How do we denote it in number line? If there is no any equivalent sign, then what you have to do is you just mark the point in the x-axis or the number line. Here I have point it as empty circle, right? I have pointed the minus 3 as an empty circle. And also, why I have put it as an empty circle, one colored circle? That is because it says it is not equivalent, x is not equivalent to minus 3, but greater than minus 3. Okay? And also in the right hand side, it says x is not equivalent to plus 3, but it is less than plus 3. So now x can be in between minus 3 and plus 3, but not including minus 3 or plus 3. How do we represent it? That is how we should show the open interval in the number line. Sorry. Yeah. Open interval in the number line. Interval is given as normal bracket, then that means open interval. Therefore, you should represent it using in this notation. If you write in set notation, how do we write? Within the curly bracket, x colon psi. X is I should write the belong sign. X belong to R. X greater than minus 3 and less than plus 3. This is how we should represent it as set notation, right? So if you represent it in number line, you have to keep in mind if there is no equivalent sign, then the point that you are representing the margin should not be colored. Right? If the interval is like this, if the interval is given like this, how do we write it in set notation? I'm asking of this one. Then you can write it. In set notation. Instead of this one, you can include the equal sign. Why is that? The first opening value is a close interval, but the closing value is an open, right? Here it is semi-open interval. This is open interval, right? Or semi-close. Here, open interval. Right? When it is semi-open or semi-close, here it's semi. The first margin is closed and the last margin is open. Therefore, you have to write it like this. Then how do we represent it in the number line? If there is equal sign with the greater than or equal sign, then you have to mark that point with as a colored circle. Here you can see x is greater than or equal to, it's represented x is greater than or equal to -3. Since there is equivalent sign here, you have to mark that point with color, right? You have to represent. Earlier, if it is not marked, then we have represent it as empty circle. Here you can see when there is no any equal sign, we represent the point as empty circle. There is an equal sign, then we represent that point as colored circle, right? Then here it says x is greater than or equal and -3 and less than -3. Here it doesn't represent equal sign. Therefore, +3 is, we represent +3 as with the empty circle. After marking the endpoint, then you can color in between those margins, right? Now I am going to color in between -3 and +3, right? This is the number line belong to -3 greater than or equal x less than or less than 3. Right? Here also it's representing semi-open interval. How do we represent it? First one is open interval. Therefore, you have to represent it as -3, comma. The number 4 is closed interval. Therefore, you have to put square bracket on the side of number 4. Here the -4x is less than or equal -4. As I said earlier, first mark the margins. So mark the end point. One is -3, other one is +4. -3 you can represent with circle. Both you have to mark with a circle, but whether it is empty or not is depend on with what? Equal sign. Or if it is close interval or close value, then it should be colored, or else the circle should be empty. Right? Here you can see x is less than or equivalent to -4. Therefore, we can color the circle in +4. But in -3, x is greater than -3, but it says not but not equal. Therefore, the point at -3 should not be colored. After marking the endpoint, then you can draw the line or mark the line. What is that mean? The x can be anything in between -3 and +4, including +4, but not including the -3. Right? All the value after the -3 and before the +4 is belong to x. Right? If both are close, then you have to color both numbers, both points, right? -3, +3. If it is close interval, then you should represent it whole thing using star brackets. And when you're writing as inequality, you have to write it as x is greater than or equal -3 and less than or equal +3. Here endpoint are -3 and +3. We have colored endpoint there because it is x is, here it says x can be equivalent to -3 or greater than. And also x can be equivalent to +3 or less than. Therefore, we can color both point, then color the numbers in between these endpoints. That is how you should represent open intervals, closed intervals, semi-closed or semi-open intervals within the number line. Right? Here you can see if it is closed interval, it shows colored circle in between these interval and draw the line in between these interval, right, intervalues. So if then other thing that you have to keep in mind, if it is shown in number line, if it is colored, that means those numbers are included. If the points are not colored, that means those numbers are not included, right? So here it shows 1,4. 1,4 using this bracket. That means, but is it open interval or a closed interval? In 1,4, it is open interval. Therefore, you have to draw in the number line with the uncolored circle. Right. Do these two exercises quickly. Do the question number 1 and 2 quickly. Right. How do we write the 2,6 as set notations? Kuma 6, how do we write as set notation? You can write it as x multiply copy earlier one. X belong to R. X is greater than 2 and less than or equal to 6. Right? Wait for a moment until I come. You do the remaining part, right? Here, you have to represent x is greater than or equal to 2 or less than or equal to 6. How do we represent it in here? Now what you have to do is mark the 2 point, right? And then color between these 2 points, right? That is how you should mark it in the number line. Then 6, 8. How do we represent 6, 8? The number belong to 6 should not be colored, but number belong to 8 should be colored, and then color the interval value, right? If minus 2, 0, number belong to minus 2 should not be colored, though the circle belong. Mark the circle in the point of minus 2, but it should be empty. And also 0 should be marked with empty circle. And then color in between, or draw a line, colored line in between minus 2 and 0. When you consider minus 3, minus 1.5, you have to mark minus 3 with colored circle, mark minus 1.5 with empty circle, and then color in between these 2, right? Then which of the following are true? 8 greater than 3. Is it true? You can answer, right? You can unmute your mic and answer. Is 8 greater than 3 is true? Right? Is it true? Yes, it is true. 8 is greater than 3. Minus 3 is minus 3 is less than 8. It is also true. Always minus 3 is less than, minus numbers are less than positive numbers, right? Or plus numbers. Minus 3 less than or equal minus 3. Is this true or false? Is this true or false? Minus 3 less than or equal minus 3. Yes, neighbor, it is true. Why is that? Minus 3 equivalent to minus 3. Here, equal sign also there. 0.5 greater than or equal to 0.25. Is it true? 0.5 means half. 0.25 means quarter, right? Yes, this is also true, right? Then 0 is greater than 9. We all know 0 is always less than the positive numbers. Therefore, E is false. 0 less than or equal 9. It is also true. 0 is not equal to 9 but less than 9. minus 7 is greater than 0. Is it true? Yes, it is false. Why is that? Always the minus value in the number line is less than the value of 0 for the origin, right? Then minus 7 is less than 0. That's correct, right? That is true. Now you know how to represent inequalities in the number line and what is the meaning of given two values with the inequalities and also the open interval, closed interval and semi-open or semi-closed intervals. Another thing that we have learned is when you multiply the value in the both side of inequalities with the positive, then this inequality sign will not change. If you multiply, divide, or add or subtract with the positive value, whatever you have done with the addition or subtraction, the inequality sign will not change, right? If it is addition or subtraction, if you have done into the both sides, then the inequality sign will not change. But if it is negative, if you multiply both sides by a negative value, or if you divide both sides by a negative value, then the inequality sign change, right? Now we will look at the absolute value. What is mean by absolute values? When it is representing absolute value, that means x can be positive value or a negative value, but in the if you consider the absolute value, it get only the positive value. But the value in between the sign, absolute sign can be positive or negative, right? Therefore, if you have something like x modulo less than 3, then that's mean x can be between -3 and +3. So x can have value in between -3 and +3, right? Since it is showing only the less than value, it shows that the absolute value of x is less than 3, right? That means the value of x, whether it is positive or negative, the absolute value of x is less than 3, right? If it is given like that, that means the value of x is in between -3 and +3. Right? If you consider the -4, then if you can take the absolute value, then it is 4, right? Then it is not less than 3. Therefore, we are considering the value in between +3 and -3 as the value that can take to the x, right? Here you can see, since there is no equal sign, we can say this as what? This as a open interval, right? Within the open interval. Here is shown that any inequalities in the form of x modulo less than a, then the solution of that of that inequality is in the form of minus a greater than x and x less than a, or else x is greater than minus a and less than a, or else you can say x is in between minus a and plus a. The interval we written as minus a comma a within the bracket, right? Right, 2 minus 2x plus 24 less than 8. Minus 2x plus 24 okay, less than 8. Right, how do we solve this one? You can reduce 24 by both sides. Then minus 24 minus minus 2 plus 2, sorry, plus 24 minus minus 2 plus minus 24 will become 0. This part will become 0. Minus 24 plus 8 means signs are different. Then the answer is minus 16. Now, we are going to find the solution. That means find the value for x, right? So, you can divide both sides by minus 2 to remove minus 2 on both sides. Then this side will become x will become x. Now we have divided both sides by minus 2. Then what should happen? This inequality sign should be changed. Minus 16 divided by 2 is equivalent to 8, right? We have divided both sides by minus value, then the resulting one, mean the final answer, in the final answer, the sign of inequality sign, less than sign will become greater than x is greater than 8. Right? Here, sorry, it here given as this one thing, right? It shows that absolute value of minus 2x plus 24 is less than 8. Therefore, you can say 2x plus 24 less than plus 8 and two x, sorry. Or else you can write this as this is in between minus 8 and minus 8 and plus 8, right? So I got one part. If you got the other, I got this part first. I consider this part first. Then if you do do other calculation for the other part, here since it is absolute value, we have written this like this, right? Now what you can do? This side will become minus 8 minus 24 less than 2x, right? Minus 32, x is greater than, sorry, 2x is greater than minus 32. Then you can divide both sides by 2. Then x is greater than minus 16. Then what will happen? X is between minus 16 and sorry, here is, I have written as minus 22x, no? Sorry. It is plus, right? Therefore, you don't need to divide it by minus value. There I have written in other way around. Therefore, x is in between minus 16 and 8, right? That's what shown in here. I have done the mistake in, not here, in the other part, right? In this part, I have put minus. So before the inconvenience, right? So here the minus 2. Minus 2 is there. Now we are going to divide both sides by minus 2. If you divide both sides by minus 2, then the inequality sign will change. So x is less than minus 16, greater than, sorry, no, less than 16, not minus, less than 16, greater than 8. So this is the answer. That's why it's given like that. You can do the same operation by keeping the both sides together, or else may do it as separate inequalities and do the calculation. Here you can see that the inequality sign does not contain equal sign. Therefore, the interval is open or closed. The interval is an open interval, right? It is not closed. So you can use bracket to represent that one. Right. Then we will look at how to draw a graph when you have given the interval of x value. Right? If the graph is in the form of y equal to x minus 1, then we call x is independent variable and the y is the dependent variable. Why we say y is dependent? According to the given x value, y can be changed. And therefore, we say y is the dependent variable, x is the independent variable. Here is given the range for x as -3 greater than or equal x, less than or equal 3. Then you can find the values in between -3 and +3, including and also including -3 and +3. By finding these values, here you can see, as we discussed in earlier, it's given when x is -3, y is -7. It's just like a coordinate of a point. Right? The point is representing -3, -7, -2, -5. When x is -2, y is -5. When x is -1, y is -3. Likewise, when you know at least 2 points or 2 coordinates of any graph, then you can draw the graph. This is only for the straight lines, right? Only for the graph with straight line. Okay? Here you can see. You can mark each point when x is -3, y is -7, x is -2, y is -5, x is -1, y is -3, x is 0, y is -1, and when x is 1, y is 1, when x is 2, y is 3. Then mark each point and connect all the points by keeping the ruler, or else you can draw a straight line connecting each point. So this is the graph of 2y equal 2x minus 1. If it is given as x is greater than x and less than 3, then you can't get the point of -3 and +3, right? This is the equation for a straight line graph, right? So if you go into the straight line graph, always the equation of straight line is in the form of y equal mx plus c. Right? M we call the slope, y. This is the equation for straight line. C is a constant. M is what? M and C are constant, but M and C are having special characteristics. M is representing always the slope of the straight line. And C is representing what is the point that the straight line crossing the y-axis, right? If the straight line equation in the form of y equal mx plus c, you can find easily the slope of the equation or slope of the straight line. It is equivalent to m, and the crossing point of y-axis is equivalent to c, right? Here you can see y equal 7x plus 5 means m is equal to 7. C is equivalent to 5. Right. If you see this, y equal to x plus 3, here you can see 2 is the slope and 3 is the point where it crosses the y-axis. Here you can see. Here you can see this is 3, right? If you consider y equal to x plus 1, the point where it is also in the form of y equal ms plus 3, that means point it cross the y-axis is plus 1. Here you can see this is also in the form of y equal ms plus 3, but the c is equal to minus 2. Then this line is crossing the y-axis at minus 2. But here you can see all the m values. All these 3 lines, all the m values are equivalent. What does that mean? If the m are equivalent, that means those lines are parallel. If 2 lines are parallel to each other, that means the m of that 2 lines are equivalent, right? C can be changed. The crossing point can be changed, but if the lines are parallel, that means the slope of that equations are same. If the slope of equations are same, also slope of the graphs are same, that means those graphs are parallel to each other, right? We say the lines of graphs are parallel if the slope or we can say it as gradient of the straight lines are equal. This is only a characteristic of straight line, right? So if 2 lines are parallel, then the slope or the gradient are equivalent. We representing gradient by m if the equation in the form of y equal mx plus c, right? Here you can see all 3 lines are parallel, but the point that they cross the y-axis or the vertical lines are different. We normally say it as vertical intercept, right? So intercept of first equation is plus 3, second one is plus 1, and the third one is minus 2, right? And also you have to keep in mind if the positive, the straight line graph with positive gradient, then it make the angle with x-axis which is less than 90 degrees, right? You can see here. Angle with x-axis is less than 90 degrees if the m is positive. If m is negative, then the angle with x-axis greater than 90 degrees. You can see here. But if it is parallel or the m is equivalent to 0, then it is parallel to the x-axis, right? If m is equivalent to 0, the straight line graph is parallel to the x-axis. If the angle between x-axis and the straight line is less than 90 degrees, then m is positive. If greater than 90 degrees, then m is negative. Right. If you have 2 points, how do we find the gradient of a equation. Right? How do we find the gradient of the equation? If you have two coordinates, gradient is equivalent to difference between y coordinates and difference between x coordinate, right? So you can take difference between y coordinate and difference between x coordinate, right? According to that, you can find the gradient of a straight line, right? And also, if you know a gradient and a line, sorry, and a point which that straight line is going through, then you can find the equation of that straight line, right? Or the equation of that graph. Right? Other thing is, now we know if it is parallel, the gradient are equivalent. The gradient are having same value. If it is perpendicular, if two equations are perpendicular or two straight line graphs or two straight line are perpendicular, then how do you find whether it is perpendicular? Then the multiplication of gradient should be equivalent to -1. If multiplication of two lines, so gradient of two lines are equivalent to -1, then we say the two lines are perpendicular. Right. Here it's given an exercise. What is the equation of line perpendicular to the graph of equation y plus 3x minus 2 equals 0 and passes through the 2, minus 4. How do we find that? Y plus 2x is equal, sorry, 3x minus 2. So equation is given like that, and it says it is passing through 2, minus 4 point. It is passing through the point 2, minus 4. Now ask you to find the equation of the perpendicular line, right? How do we find it? First, you have to write down the equation in the form of y equal mx plus c. How do we write it? Y equal, when you go the remaining part into other side, plus 3x will become minus 3x. Minus 2 will become plus 2, right? Here I'm not going to do the part in between, or not going to do the calculation in between those two. So you can write y plus 3x minus 2 equal to 0 as y equal 3x plus 2. Sorry, it should be plus 3x or minus 3x. Be minus 3x. Now what is the m1 here? Or else the m of this equation? I will call the gradient as m1 of this equation is minus 3. If the line is perpendicular to this one, m1 into, assume that the gradient of other line is m2, should be equivalent to minus 1. Right? We know m1 is minus 3 multiply m2 is equivalent to minus 1. Then what is the m2? The line perpendicular to above one is equivalent to 1 divided by 3. Right? If the line is perpendicular, the gradient multiplication of two gradient or the multiplication of gradient of two lines should be equal to minus 1. Now we know the gradient of one line. Therefore, you can find the gradient of other line using m1 into m2 equal minus 1. Instead of m1, you can put minus 3. From that, you can find the gradient of other line. Right? Now it says it is going through the line 2, minus 4. Now you know the gradient. Therefore, you can write the equation of the perpendicular line is 1 over 3 x it is straight line. It is in the form of this, right? Now you know, but it is given that this line is going through 2, minus 4. You know, gradient line is going through this one. Now what you can do? You can substitute. Right, before I go into that. Right. Now your equation in the form of this. Now you can substitute value. Instead of y, as I said in the at the beginning or when starting the lecture, I say when you write the coordinate of any given point of xy plane, first value is represented in the x value and the second value is represented in the y value. Right? Therefore, y is, instead of y, you can put value minus 4. Instead of m3, you can put 1 over 3. The gradient of this equation is equivalent to 1 over 3. X is equivalent to 2 plus C. Now minus 4 minus 2 divided by 3 is equivalent to C, right? Is it 2, 4? Yeah, 2, minus 4. So what is C? C is equivalent to minus 12 minus 2 divided by 3 is equal to minus 14 divided by 3. Now you know C and N2. Then what is the answer for the equation, or the equation of perpendicular to the previous one is y equal 1 over 3x minus 14 divided by 3. Right? So that is the equation for which is perpendicular to the given equation. Right? So you have to keep in mind, if you write in the form of y equal mx plus c, m is representing the gradient of the equation. C is representing the intercept. Intercept of vertical axis, or else the crossing point of y axis. Right? As I said earlier, if m is positive, and the slope is the angle which is making with the x-axis is less than 90 degrees. If angle is greater than 90 degrees, then greater than 90 degrees, then it is negative gradient. Less than 90 degrees, it is positive gradient. If the angle is equal to 180 degrees, then the gradient is equal to 0. Okay? So by looking at the gradient, you can check, say whether it is positive line, negative, positive or negative, or parallel to x-axis. Right? If two straight lines are parallel to each other, then the gradient are equal. If two straight lines are perpendicular to each other, then the multiplication of gradient of those two lines is equal to minus 1. Right? You have to keep those things in mind. Right? Next day, we will look at how to draw this kind of graph for the quadratic graph in the quadratic equation form, right? So graph with quadratic value or the square value. How to plot the graph with this value and find the square root. Right? Okay, we will stop class for today. In next Sunday, we will do more than 2 hours, right? At least 3 hours I will do on next Sunday. Okay. Okay, I will stop now. If you have any question, you can ask, right? Okay then. Have a nice day. I will stop now.